Welcome back. Now, there's growing calls for the national state of disaster to be lifted. Let me take you back to the 15th of March 2020. It was set to lapse in June of that year, but as we all know, the extension after extension are now bringing us well into 2022. Western Cape Premier Alan Winde, who I spoke to the other day, says the health system is coping. There's no need for it anymore. So why do we still have a state of disaster? And what effect does it have on business in South Africa? Well, Business Unity South Africa's Coovadia, always gracious with his time to join us. Morning to you, Cass. So where do you stand on the state of disaster? We've seen curfew being lifted. Some people saying state of disaster, lockdown makes no sense anymore.
Morning, and thanks for having me. I would agree that lockdowns make no sense anymore, and that I think further restrictions, certainly the way things stand at the moment, would make no sense. But we would say that so long as the pandemic is with us, I think we need a legal instrument to respond as and when we need to respond. And so I think the state of disaster, so long as the pandemic is with us, should remain as that legal instrument. But we would certainly urge government not to abuse that in any way and to use it specifically as an instrument as and when the science points us in particular directions. So if for some reason or other we begin to get into a fifth wave, or if infections go up even under the fourth wave for some reason or other, and the science tells us to do certain things, then we need a legal instrument to do that. But we would urge government to have that legal instrument handy and not get rid of it at this point in time, so long as the pandemic with us, but to use it as and when and guided by the science.
And that's been much of the criticism aimed at governments, both from the alcohol industry, tourism industry, business to a certain degree as well, Cass, is that it has been abused, not necessarily deliberately, but because of a lack of understanding of the science.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's learn from those lessons. We've said consistently, if you take the alcohol industry as an example, we've said consistently that the industry understands that some restrictions need to be placed at certain times and given certain criteria. But what we've always urged is let us look at this in partnership. We have always indicated the industry is willing to share with government data and research they have. We have always urged that government share their data and research, the criteria they use to make certain decisions before they take those decisions, so that we can put our heads together, we can plan for these things, we can be more proactive about it. And our appeal to government would be to see business and labor and community groups as partners in this, as we have been partners in the vaccine rollout. And I think if we manage this properly, if we see it as a country issue and government sees us as real partners that they can talk to, we can plan together and be more proactive about the way we do these things, we believe we can manage this far more effectively.
And that has also been one of the other criticisms leveled at government. It's almost come across as it's business, the alcohol industry, tourism against government and vice versa. So let's hope that partnership works going forward. Can you give me a practical, if you can just give me one practical change you would make, keep the state of disaster as you're suggesting, what one change would you make now, would you urge government to make now to make your life easier?
Well, the one critical issue is communication. I think that communicate more effectively and more transparently. And secondly, just share information, be transparent about the criteria you are using, enable us to share information, research, and data with you so that we have all the information, all the research, all the data available for us to actually utilize to take appropriate and correct decisions timeously.
One of the other questions, perhaps before I let you go, Cass, is the reason for the state of disaster and the lockdowns was to get our hospitals ready for the pandemic. If we were to just look at that reasoning, which was the sole purpose of it, the hospital beds, we understand, around the country, not just with Alan Windey and the Western Cape, the Premier down there, the hospitals do seem to be coping, the numbers are down. So why would it still justify a state of disaster or lockdown at all if that was the reason given?
Well, I wouldn't think that's the only reason. So you need the state of disaster regulations. For instance, to implement a curfew in the event you need to implement one. For instance, to look at restrictions if you need to look at those. We are saying there's no need for those. What the current situation certainly does not warrant any of that. All we are postulating is that it takes time to actually get regulation and legislation in place in the event, and all signs provided we get the vaccinations up, and that's got to be our concentration now. We've got to, as we've been saying for the last few months, in fact, for most of the last year, we've got to concentrate on getting as many people vaccinated as quickly as possible. That enables us to break the back of this virus. That so long as we get that going, there's no need, we can't foresee any need for restrictions, curfew, and so on. But if we've learned one thing in the last couple of years, it's that we don't know enough about this virus yet. It's been very unpredictable. So all we're saying is that let's have the instrument ready. So in the event that in a very quickly we need to utilize the instrument is there to utilize. But please, government, do not abuse it.
Yeah, I think it comes down to the do not abuse it as well. They might be the ones making the decisions, but don't just make overarching decisions for the country. Cas, forgive me before I let you go as well. While I get a chance to speak to you, I think so many people would want to get your thoughts on the state capture report. I don't want to lead your angle on that, obviously. Have you had a chance to look at it? What stands out for Busa?
Well, I have had a chance to look at it, and we have issued a statement. We've also indicated that we are putting together a special board meeting on Monday to discuss the report. I am absolutely clear that this is a seminal moment, in my view, in the fight against corruption and against state capture. The Zondo Commission has been about 42 months that they've been working, cost the country over R1 billion. I think Judge Zondo has played an admirable role in chairing the commission. And we now need to take their report and their recommendations very seriously, both as business, as government, and as society as a whole. We've said in our statement that this gives us an opportunity, if we consider the recommendations, we implement those recommendations as quickly as we can. It gives us the opportunity to reset the moral compass across society, which I think over many years we've lost. And so we consider this to be a seminal report, an extremely important report. It's an 800-odd page report, and this is just part one of the report, so we are looking at it. But we will, at a meeting on Monday, consider our approach and our position on this. We need to, as we criticize others, government and others, we need to be absolutely sure that we get our house as business in order. And there are recommendations related to that. Some businesses have been named, and we will discuss all of that. But we are absolutely clear that we need to, by example, demonstrate as business that we are serious about rooting out corruption, punishing those involved in state capture in the business fraternity. And we need to do that. Otherwise, we cannot point fingers at others. But we will consider all of this on Monday. And out of that meeting, we will probably issue another statement to indicate how we want to deal with this.
And no doubts, Cas, it will always be gracious of you to speak to us after that happens as well. But you have a good weekend. We look forward to hearing what comes out of that meeting. Cas Coovadia, thank you as always in speaking to us here on All Angles. Cas Coovadia, Business Unity South Africa, reacting to the state capture report as well. There's a lot to go through. Cas is quite right. Over 800 pages, very detailed. Of course, they need time to digest all of it before coming out with any sort of plans and suggestions and recommendations that they have as well.